Hello everyone and welcome to Zappy Productions, and today I'll be reviewing this earphone here. This is the Simgot EA1000. So actually this is also called the Fermat's last theorem. I think it's a very interesting name. I don't really know how it relates to the earphone much, but you know, EA1000 is actually a model number, and Fermat is actually what they call this particular series of earphone itself. Now the EA1000 is, you can see a really nice small little earphone itself. It is very shiny. You can see it's just like really ultra shiny, and it does have something like quartz or acrylic. I'm not really sure. I think it's a quartz surface here that is actually protecting the surface here. It's really nice and shiny. I mean, it's a obvious, you know, fingerprint magnet, but overall I think this is a very nice set of earphones themselves. Now this earphone is purchased by myself, so you know, I got it during my trip to Shanghai, and at that point of time this was more of an accidental discovery because I saw it on the first page of my Taobao purchase, because I've been purchasing earphones. So they recommended this to me, and then I did a quick search on the review. At that point in time there was only like 1 or 2 reviews and it was quite good, so I just purchased it. And overall I really say that this is a very enjoyable earphone itself. Now if you do not want to, you know, stay till the end of the entire review, I think this is one of the most dynamic, exciting earphone you can actually purchase. It's really fun to listen to. I think this is not your very standard kind of tuning. There is not much sibilance, but a lot of excitement, a lot of dynamic. And if you are into the punchy bass, overall very dynamic mids and highs, I think this is a very nice earphone to try out. But you know, that is really a short description of this earphone itself. I mean, you can see it is a really nice earphone. I think the price today is about 220 USD, so not too expensive, not too cheap. But something interesting to try out. So before we talk about more in-depth into the sound quality of the earphone, let's talk about what's inside the box. Now let's look at what's inside the box. This is the box. You see, Fermat's last theorem. Actually, I really don't understand why they use this name, but you know, Simgot EA1000 is the easier one. You can see it writes there DDPR, which means a dynamic driver with a passive radiator. You can see actually there's a passive radiator at the side here. I mean, not sure you can see that this is the passive radiator area here. So this earphone does have a lot of vents and the passive radiator is here. So this is the box, so let's take a look at what's inside. Now, some of you may have seen people talking about the golden card, and the golden card is here. It is like literally golden, and then it talks about the Fermat last theorem. I really don't understand. I mean, I actually went to spend the time to read this, but I don't understand how is this related to the earphone in any way. So never mind on that. And then inside the box you can see, okay, these are the compartments. This is of course where the earphones originally were. I took it out already. And then this is where you can actually get all the tips. So there's a bunch of tips here. This is a bunch of tips. You can see there's a few sets of it. I didn't really change. I just used the smallest tip on this earphone. And then this is for the case. I'll talk about the case later. The case is really nice. And then this is where the interesting thing is. This is actually the filter for the earphone themselves. So the filter itself comes in 2 types. So I'm not sure whether you can see this. It's actually really small. But maybe let me unscrew one of them and show you. You can see this is red. There's a red ring here. This is red ring. So this is actually the red filter. Okay, let me put it aside first before I screw it back. And then you notice that this is the blue ring. This is the blue filter itself. And in addition to these 2 filters, there is also one more filter on the earphones itself. This filter I have on the earphone now is the gold filter. You can see this is actually golden in color. So to change the filter, just have to screw this out. You can just turn this and then you can take out the filter itself. You can see the driver inside is actually an interesting blue color driver. Now, among the filters, I would say I prefer the gold filter. The gold filter is a bit more mid-centric. but it is actually the most enjoyable filter to me, because it gives a lot of power to the sound, especially the mids where most of the instruments and vocals are, while the red is just way too bright and harsh for me, while the blue itself makes the whole mids feel very recessed. So even though yes, Simgot gave quite a bit of these filters, I just stick with my gold filter and kind of remain there for pretty much the entire time. I didn't really change the filter that much. Okay, so that's really about it for what's inside the box. There's just a lot of these small little accessories here and there. Now, this is the case, and I do like the case. The case, it is actually a very nice hard case with a magnetic latch. I really like this kind of case though. It's deep here, and you just like put your earphones in like this, and then with all the cables inside, then just close it up. And then actually Simgot designed a case to even have all the different plugs, but the cables themselves can't change with the plugs. You are fixed with either a 3.3 or a 4.4. The cable itself is pretty nice though. I think this is one of the nicer cables. Let me see. It doesn't retain much memory, as you can see. Just a touch little bit memory. And I think the cable feels really good. This is a silver coated copper cable, I believe. Very nice cable overall. And then you can see at the tip here, then there's the hook, which have a memory plastic here that holds the hook nicely, so you can actually hang on your ears. And then there's also a choker here, so that you can actually wear it and then choke it accordingly to the back of your head or neck, however you want it. Now, these earphones, I have to say something first, is that if you notice the plugs here, this is recessed in. Now, you notice this is a recessed plug. So recessed plug means that this is a 0.78. The 0.78 plug, but it's recessed. So only cables that don't have the shape can actually go in fully into this earphone. But it also does mean that as long as your cable do not have the shape, or your cable is a flat head, you cannot fully go into this earphone themselves and make it loose. So the choice of cables for this earphone is pretty limited. You have to find those that actually ends off with a square head like this, so that you can plug it into your earphones. If not, it will probably not work out. Okay, that's really about it for all the babbling about the build quality and stuff. Oh, there's one more thing I want to show you, is the weight of these earphones. Now, the earphones are not really heavy, but it's not really light either. I think it's on the more heavy side. In fact, you can see here, this is a measuring scale for coffee. It measures into the, I would say, point something grams. You can see one side is about 11.3 gram, 11.4 gram. Just to note that most other earphones I measure is less than 10 grams. So this is a little bit more on the heavy side for earphones itself. Now, with that said, let's talk about sound quality. I think sound quality overall is really, really nice to listen to this. I don't think this is the standard tuning. It is very dynamic, very exciting, with a very punchy bass, not very deep, but very punchy bass, very exciting and powerful mids with a lot of body, and highs that sparkle but not overdone, at least not with the golden tip. If you put the red tip, it's too much for me. But overall, I think this is a very exciting sound signature. In terms of tonality, this is actually a neutral tone. There is actually not much warmness to it, not much coolness to it. It's just like this very neutral tone, but with a lot of body to the sound itself. Now, I have heard many songs, a lot of soundtracks, such as Wish from Mercury, or from, let's say, things like Ultima, One Wing Angel, Final Fantasy VII songs, and also various anime tracks. I think this earphone is really, really fun to listen to, and I truly do enjoy it in many ways. So, firstly, very neutral tone. Secondly, it is really, really clear. I mean, the clarity is just awesome, as long as the track is not very complex. Now, in very complex tracks like One Wing Angel, I did notice that it gets a bit congested and compressed, and you do lose some of this clarity. Similarly, also for details, if on normal circumstances, the earphone is really, really detailed, but the moment it becomes too complex, some of the details do just disappear. Especially, I was listening to, I think, The Wish from Mercury. One of the drum beats do actually just disappear when the track gets a bit too complex, especially in the low mids. And then when it comes to the soundstage itself, I think the soundstage is quite wide. It is outside the head. It is wider than some of the other earphones, and it has a little bit of depth. But the depth is actually quite limited. It's mainly on the width of the soundstage itself. Now, when it comes to the positioning of the sound, however, is quite limited. Even though the soundstage is quite wide, the soundstage positioning itself is quite limited. It's just mainly far left, left, center, right, far right. It doesn't go much in between. Really, the song I heard so far, especially things like One Wing Angel, where there's a lot of instruments in a lot of positions. To me, it just sounds only these 5 positions. There is not much in between for these 5 particular positions itself for these earphones. Now, when it comes to the separation of the sound, once again, same as clarity and detail, as long as it's not too congested, not too complex, I would say as the separation for the instruments are really, really good. It is well separated, very cleanly, in fact. And none of the frequencies were breached into other frequencies. But the moment it becomes a bit complex, separation between instruments get a bit muddy, and then as what I said just now, the clarity do fall and details do gets, I guess, hidden away from all the complexity of the track. But maybe that's because this is a single dynamic driver. There's only that much one single driver can do, but this is really how it sounds like for these particular earphones in those parameters itself. Now, when it comes to the bass, I would say as the bass is where things are interesting. It is very, very impactful, but the amount of bass, the quantity of bass is not very high. It's just impactful. And also the sub bass is actually there, but not in big quantities. A lot of the modern IEMs do have relatively elevated sub bass, while this one doesn't have. Means the 20, 30, 40 hertz is quite limited on these earphones themselves. You can hear it, but there is not much to it. I mean, the drums smash down, it feels great, but no, the decay after that, the sub bass and stuff is quite limited. Now, for this particular EA1000, I do have to say that the texture of the sub bass, however, or should I say the general texture of the bass, is very clean, impactful, very enjoyable. However, if you were to critically listen to them, there is a lack of details there. When I was listening to songs such as, I really want to stay at your place, or say just now what I said about, Ultima, or even One Wing Angel, anything with the sub bass itself, it is actually quite smoothed over. Not much details there. It's a limitation, I guess. I'm not too sure whether it's a driving limitation or what, but at least, you just have to know that when you enter into the bass region, the texture is quite limited. Now, when it comes to the mid, however, this is where things are really awesome. The mids on these are really nice. It's full-bodied. It is very, I would say, as realistic sounding. It feels very tangible, and it's just really powerful. It's really, really powerful, especially for vocals. I enjoy Edo's song on this a lot. I also enjoy Yoasobi. Yoasobi is more of the smooth, airy kind of voice, while Edo is this powerful female vocals, and both of them sound fantastic on this earphone, even though I say Edo sounds even better because this earphone is so dynamic, so fun, and it does project her powerful voice on this particular earphone itself. The violins from Shadow Me was great. The guitars from Unravel, electric guitars and normal guitars are just so nice on this. The plucking the strings to the general tone of it feels really realistic, very, I guess, very powerful, very realistic, very tangible. The mids for these particular earphones. Now, when it comes to highs though, I would say as this is quite a bright earphone, but the quantity is quite low. So the overall volume in the treble, I think, is quite low, especially with the golden filter. So even though, yes, it's bright, you can hear it's very bright sounding, but it's not irritating, it's just bothering there, which makes it quite exciting to listen, I guess, because this very sparkly, sizzling treble, but, it's never too much till it irritates you, unless you're using the red filter, which irritates me. It's too harsh for me there. As you can see so far that when I describe this earphone, I think the overall sound signature is just very dynamic. It goes very punchy at the bottom, very powerful at the top, at the mid, not the top, at the mid, and very sparkly at the top. So when the music starts play with this earphone, it's just very exciting sounding from the start to the end because of this kind of dynamics that it's trying to portray in terms of its sound signature. Really interesting earphone itself. Now, when it comes to amplification, which I want to talk about last, is that this earphone does benefit from good amplification, but not so much of in terms of power, but more of 3 parameters: harshness, soundstage, and airiness. Now, if I was to play with this guy here, this is the DD Hi-Fi T35. This is actually really harsh sounding for the earphones. I really don't like it. Now, with the Apple dongle, I think it's pretty okay. Actually, it's fine. You can just live with this and be fine with it. This is an improvement. This is the M15 crystal. It does reduce the harshness, improve the overall quality of the sound, and especially in the soundstage, but quite minor, I guess, really compared to the Apple dongle. Similarly, this is the M17. I mean, this is relatively high-end, ready for adapt. It also does, reduce the harshness, improve the general soundstage, but to me, the improvement is very minimal and not worth the effort. Now, I did go all the way. What if I go all the way, right? A $4,000 amplifier, this is the Emblem, running on either voltage or current out. It does do the same thing. This actually reduces the harshness to the point where I don't even feel there's any more harshness. So it is really enjoyable, very smooth, airy sounding, with good amount of soundstage for the EA1000. But I think this is just not worth to invest, especially for a earphone of this price. Overall, I think that this IEM, the EA1000, is truly a very spectacular IEM, very dynamic, very enjoyable to listen. And if you are in the market for a single dynamic driver, I think this is the one for you. And ignoring the driver technology, if you're in the market for a very dynamic sounding earphone, this is the one you should consider. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed short little review. And just want to close off that this earphone, to me, scored a good 32.5 upon 40. One of the highest scoring sound emitting device that I have. And I truly enjoy this particular earphone. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.